Live.
What's up, Spud Nation? It is Friday, February 14th, and a very happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. Hope you're, spreading a lot of love, getting a lot of love, and enjoying yourself this very fine Friday. I'm your host, Greg Bergner. I appreciate you guys spending some time with me today. We have a very fun segment going on. It's called the Full Court Press, and it involves W7's very own Gary Whipperman and special guest Brady Peterson. He's a writer for Girls Prep Hoops Wisconsin. I love this segment. We get to cover all things girls basketball here in the state of Wisconsin, so buckle up and enjoy. Let's go ahead and let's invite our guests in and give them a very friendly hello. Gentlemen, happy Valentine's Day. Happy fine Friday to both of you.
Craig, good morning. How are you?
I'm great, my man. How about yourself, Gary?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Glad to be on here today.
Every time I see you, man, I'm happy you're alive and kicking. Feeling all right?
Yeah, I think everybody knows we did a game Tuesday night at Winneconne, and somehow I picked up a really nasty flu bug, and it was really bad Wednesday night and through the day Thursday, but a lot better today. Just one of those things. I mean, it's just kind of the dangers of being out in the wintertime. You're just going to be exposed to that stuff, and you can take all the precautions you want, but and I love the kids and I love going, but we know they're big germ factories over there at these high school gyms.
Huge germ factories.
That's the way it goes. That's how you roll the dice, and that's how you do it.
I coach both my sons' basketball teams, and I have been exposed to the plague as well, my friend. I'm happy you're feeling better and turning the corner here. Brady, yes. Happy to see you again, man. Always great. You are a plethora of knowledge. We are so happy to have you on. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I probably sound a little raspy too. I had my turn at whatever was going around here a couple weeks ago. I'm on the back nine of this thing. Hopefully, like the last couple days with this before it's gone. But I feel like everyone's kind of got it. I feel like everyone I was talked to is something's gone on. Gary's had enough for probably 3 lifetimes in the last couple weeks.
Right.
So the flu's just kind of adding insult to injury. But yeah. Happy to be back. It's been too long. I'm happy the schedule's coalesced for me to be on here today.
Very much so. I agree. Gary, let's steer this vessel, my man. Actually, first, either you have Valentine's Day plans tonight? You going to spoil someone you love, getting spoiled today?
I'll be at Kaukauna tonight for Appleton West and Kaukauna. Unfortunately, I missed Kaukana's game last night that I was scheduled to do just because of the flu, and they knocked off Marshfield 45-43. It's probably the most exciting game of the year for the Ghosts, and I wasn't there, which is super frustrating. But glad I got the win, and I'm not sure if it's senior night tonight or if it's next week. But either way, I'll be there tonight.
Fantastic. Brady, you got hot plans tonight?
Yeah, it's I'm getting a little paid time off for today. For at least the first 4 hours, I'm supposed to be at work, and I'll show up at 3. Hopefully, do a short shift today and head over to East Troy around 6 o'clock for their game against Delavan Darien tonight. Because I haven't seen East Troy play today, and they've had quite the year. I think they're sitting at like 18-2 right now, and would like to be able to get out and see them before the year ends next week, which really doesn't feel like it should be ending next week. But trying to cram in a little bit before the postseason starts.
I know. It felt like the season just started, and it is coming to a very quick end here, gentlemen. Let's steer this ship. Gary, where do you want to take this today?
Well, Brady, I want to start with, to me, let's just dig into, next week or on Sunday is the playoff seeding show. I don't think it's on TV in the Milwaukee area. I know it is in the other markets. I'm not sure, but I think you can watch it online on the WIA website. It's 11 o'clock on Sunday. Norbert Durst and Carly Barada will be hosting that show. So I know I'll be tuned in to get the reveal of the brackets for all 5 divisions. But I thought maybe we just use today as kind of a primer for that show on Sunday. Again, they do a really great job, and it'd be great just to talk about what we see and what kind of the outlook that we see in each of the sectionals in each of the 5 divisions. Brady, what do you think?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I mean, I've been going through a bunch of divisions this week with my writing stuff, and I got D5 tomorrow, and then I get to wrap it up. But yeah, just going through all the RPI stuff that I've collected throughout the year, and kind of just comparing it to how last season and the season before's bracket has kind of come out with the computer seedings that they do, and just kind of trying to get an idea of kind of where some teams are going to end up, and kind of what that path to the Rush Center this year looks like for everybody.
Yeah, I love that.
Let's start with
that'll give the audience a great view of these teams heading into tournament time. I love it.
For sure.
Let's go, gentlemen.
Let's start with Division One. Normally we start at the Division 5, and we almost seem to run out of time for Division One. So let's start with Division One today, and sectional. We'll go sectional one. So I've got the brackets in front of me, the bracket assignments in front of me. Brady, I've also got your RPI rankings in front of me. If you're not following Brady, make sure you do. Brady Peterson on Prep Girls Hoops Wisconsin. He puts out an RPI rating for all the teams, and also breaks it down by division as well. So it's a really good view of what his rankings are. Of course, WisSports Nest does the coaches poll as well every week. So two great sources to get the latest and greatest as far as girls basketball rankings go. So Brady, let's start sectional one, Division One. It looks like you've got Hortonville at the top. Now, my first question for you is, and I'm going to put you on the spot right away. I don't know the extent of injury for Rainey Wilson and for Carden Pepler. That to me are the two big question marks of Hortonville's number one. Do you have more information on either of those?
I mean, I don't have anything, set in stone, just because I haven't talked to AC or Rainey or her dad at any point. But I will say, from what I've heard, it seems kind of bleak that Rainey comes back this year, if at all, which sucks for her, obviously. But Carden with her stress fracture, it's another one that's going to be a wait and see kind of deal from what it sounded like when I talked to AC a couple weeks ago up in Kimberly. But yeah, no, I think that Hortonville is probably not going to end up on that one line, regardless of what happens tonight with Neenah. One of the things that I've always touched on is there's the adjusted RPI that the WIA uses, and the teams that tend to jump a lot are ones that have much better winning percentages than teams around them. And, although Eau Claire Memorial is kind of out of sight, out of mind for people in the Fox Valley and the Milwaukee area, they put together quite the season over there. They've only lost twice. Once. Yep. Lost the opening game they had this year with Spash, and then they lost a overtime one with Appleton East this year. But other than that, I believe they're going to be 19-2 heading into Sunday, because they just beat Rice Lake last night. So I would assume that regardless of what my raw RPI says, my guesstimation is that Eau Claire Memorial is probably going to have that one seed in Sectional 1.
I agree with you. I think they will as well. What about Hudson? How much do you know about Hudson, Brady?
Yeah, so Hudson has had, they've been really unlucky these last 2 years. I mean, they've had their current sophomore, Olivia LeBlanc, has torn her ACL twice, and she's played a total of 7 games in the last, her first 2 seasons that she's had in high school. So they've kind of had to adjust to that again this year after she tore it again in Kettle Moraine this year at the Thanksgiving Showcase. But they're a really good group. They move the ball really well. They can be a little streaky on the offensive end, but they're going to create good shots for themselves. Yeah, there should be a team that's probably playing in sectionals this year. They have a lot of really good kids. I mean, they're deep. They just don't have that top end talent that they did with Olivia LeBlanc at the start of the year, unfortunately for them.
Interesting to me is, and a team that I think is kind of flying under the radar, but could be a real threat in the postseason, is Appleton East. They've had a really nice, solid season, especially playing in the FVA.
Yeah, for sure. So they have 3 kids in particular that have been there for a couple of years now that have played together that are really talented. Lily Mullmans, Ella Sweeney, and Tori Neubauer, all of which are going to be playing scholarship basketball when they're done with their time at Appleton East. Amelia Mott Marquette has also stepped up big time for them. She's a freshman, and she's kind of been the connector for this team that's kind of been dying for one for the last couple of years. And, her ability to move the ball, defend a couple positions at about 5'9", she's been very key to them. It may not show up in scoring or anything like that, but she just plays really good basketball for them and just makes everything work. So yeah, I'm curious to see what they look like this year. They were a little bit disappointing last year, but they've had a much better year this year. And yeah, I think with them and especially Neenah too, coming out of the FVA this year, I'm curious to kind of see what those two look like in the postseason.
Are you surprised by Neenah? I got to tell you, I'm really surprised. Of course, they lost Allie Zabel, but they lost a lot of kids last year, and I thought it would be kind of a rebuild year. But Coach Brunell has done such a fantastic job at getting this team, in the position they're in, and they could surprise the people as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Coach Andy. So the biggest thing for them, obviously losing Allie, is you lose everything that she does. I mean, she drew so much attention for other teams' defenses last year, and honestly, the biggest surprise this year for me has been how dominant Rowan Klesmit's been for them.
What a year
I mean, if
she's
it wasn't for
having.
Rainey Wilson, if it wasn't for Rainey Wilson existing in the FVA, Rowan Klesmit would probably be the FVA Player of the Year this year. She's pushing a 50, 40, 90 season, and no one's been able to really slow her down. I'm going to guess that that's probably going to continue tonight against Hortonville. I'm guessing that Neenah probably wins that game.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, Rowan Klesmit's been unbelievable. I mean, I have no words really. I mean, she's probably averaging like 24, 25 points on, like I said before, close to 50, 40, 90 shooting. And, for a kid like that who, you didn't really, I can tell you, I didn't expect that from her this year. So it's been a real pleasant surprise for me to kind of see her do her thing, but it's a Klesmit thing, I guess. So
Yeah. Well, her brother's pretty good, I guess. You know what I said? I said Rowan could beat her brother in one-on-one any day. So we'll see. Let's move to sectional 2. I said it this week. I said it last week on Craig's show, and I believe it just as much this week. I mean, Pewaukee's the team to beat in sectional 2. I mean, and that sectional is just completely jam-packed full of talent. If you look at the top 8 teams, I mean, even moving to the top 10. I mean, it's almost unfair how many good teams are, not even almost, it's unfair how many good teams that are in sectional 2 and only one team can come out of there.
Yeah, so I was actually having a conversation with somebody a couple days ago, and I think it is very, very likely that a 14 seed in the sectional is going to have a winning record by the time that the postseason rolls, or the time selection Sunday rolls around, which is on Sunday, which is kind of insane. And, I think the biggest thing with this sectional is I know there's been a lot of, complaints with this one in particular, obviously because it's so talented. But, another thing, too, is, I mean, if, a lot of it's based on geography when it comes to these sectionals. And it is a little bit weird, I will say, to have a team like Pewaukee in there along with Notre Dame. And I've driven up to Green Bay before. And I live, right across the freeway from Pewaukee. And it's like a 2+ hour drive, which doesn't really feel like it's a geographic thing. Yeah, it is.
Kakana, too. Kakana's a haul, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, this sectional is going to be pretty brutal. If Pewaukee can manage to, find a way out of it after kind of all they've been through this year, from injuries before the year, during the year, and, kind of figuring things out as things go along. And, if they get there, that'd be quite the accomplishment for them, because it's, they're going to be pressed pretty much the second that they, get into a sectional semifinal, more than likely by a pretty good team, whether that's, Homestead, Hartford, De Pere, whoever that may be, Brookfield East. I mean, it's just going to be a pretty brutal track to get to the rest of that.
It's a gauntlet to get through that sectional. I mean, it is a gauntlet. So they'll probably play like I assume they'll get a bye on Tuesday, and then Friday. I mean, they're probably playing like a Bondi, DSHA, somebody like that, maybe Kakana.
Which isn't, then, I mean, for one seed, it's not necessarily like a complete pushover either, which is crazy.
Right. But. And then you go Saturday against maybe like you could theoretically be playing Notre Dame, Germantown, Preble, one of those teams on Saturday, just again for a regional. And I don't know if you saw the game last night. Kimberly and Notre Dame was on W7 last night and Fixed TV. It was a really great game, and Kimberly got the win, but it was not easy. And Notre Dame is a team also. I mean, they don't have those seniors from last year, obviously, but I mean, Sarah Rohde's been through the fire many times, and I don't think you can count them out either as a possible upstart here in this sectional 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy with Notre Dame. I mean, they just keep on churning. They just keep on going.
Peyton Mutual's having a fantastic season this year.
Oh yeah, and they've gotten really big seasons from kids like Destiny Webster too. There's just it just seems like no matter what happens, they just have a kid who steps up and just does something really big for them. Obviously Kyle Waldrop goes down early in the year with an ACL tear. And,
that's a huge loss.
Yeah, it was massive. And then you have a kid like transferred in from Manitowoc Lincoln, Brianna Brees, who comes in, has been playing really good spot minutes for them. And Aspen Abel even gets hurt, and obviously then and I got Peyton handling the ball even more. And it just feels like no matter what they do, they thrive. Even if it's even at the start of the year with Pewaukee when they lost to them down here in Pewaukee, they even were competitive in that game. And I don't know how many people would have expected that, but yeah, I mean, no matter who they play against, they're not going to be the easiest team to beat.
And you're kind of starting to see Aspen kind of get her groove back a little bit. I mean, it took a while. She has metatarsal injuries, which those are just such nagging, horrible things because it's not like super serious, but it's just one of those things that just continues to just plague you. It's almost like that plantar fasciitis. I mean, it's one of those things where it takes a long time to recover from. But I think she's kind of starting to find her way back and could be a real difference maker in this postseason.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a game of inches for sure, and having a kid that's as talented as Aspen out there who can do a little bit of everything for you. I mean, she can play back to the basket with what Notre Dame does. She can do a lot of the off-ball cutting, and she can handle it too. So you can kind of stick her anywhere, and she's going to be able to figure stuff out. So having her back is going to be massive for them, especially in some of these games that they're going to have to play to just get to a sectional.
Would you say Hartford's a long shot to make it through that sectional? I mean, is that even fair to say?
It's crazy because I probably would have said that last year, and they did it.
Right.
Hartford, as I mean, they didn't have Bella Klages, which is one of their most important pieces, maybe even their most important piece in my opinion, for a good chunk of the year. And they've kind of had some hiccups along the way, but as far as teams who can just go out and score 100 on any given day against anybody, I mean that's the team that can really do it. I mean maybe even more so than Pewaukee. So I mean they're definitely not as much of a high-end team as they were last year, probably just because Pewaukee's there. But they can score with anyone. So I mean, if you're going to beat them, you're probably going to have to put up 75 plus points to do it, and that's on a rough day for Hartford. So, and if they're playing their best, it may even have to be more than that.
What do you make of De Pere this year? I mean, they've been able to accomplish a lot with really a lot of what I would almost call role players. I mean, there's no star on that team. There's no Jordan Melmans. There's no Claire Bjorgi. It's been a committee, but they've had a really really nice season, and again, could be a team to watch out for in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, the one kid I would earmark out of all of them is Abby Tassel, just because, her ability as a lead guard to kind of just get things going for them has been really important. And, these postseasons are won on backcourt play. I just don't think that you can get around that. So you need a really good guard, and Abby's been amazing for them this year. But yeah, I mean, they just all kind of figure out a way to do it. I mean, it could be Adeline Dwyer one day. It could be Allie Neuenfeld another day. Like, they just have so many kids who just, trust each other and, can just make things happen. They're all good enough defenders where you can stick them kind of anywhere. And, they're probably going to switch a ton. But, I look back to where they were 2 years ago, Claire Bjorgi's junior year, right after she tore her ACL over the summer. And a lot of these seniors like Egan, they were playing big minutes then. They were kind of just thrown into the fire and just told to figure it out. And, now all those kids that had to figure it out when, their backs are against the wall, now they're seniors and they kind of know how to win these games. So, I mean, it's just a real gritty bunch. Obviously, they just kind of have been through it all. So, they're another one that's going to be a difficult one to beat too.
They have, and you always want to be careful about a team that's got something to play for. And I don't know out of the entire field. I'm sure a lot of teams have a story, but the De Pere story is very compelling. With Hadley Baker passing away this past month, and I know how close the kids were with Hadley, especially Egan, and I think that they've definitely got a motivation to play for that may be more than the sum of the parts of this team. So I'd watch out for them. I think that they're going to be more dangerous than what people might think. So let's move into sectional 3. I mean, it's certainly not as loaded as 2. I mean, it's Arrowhead. Waunakee also having a really nice year. Oregon in there as well. So I mean, you got some really good teams in that group. But it's certainly top heavy.
Yeah, so obviously Arrowhead reigning D1 state champions from last year. They have Natalie Cuso. I mean, can't really say, what more can you say about her that hasn't already been said? But that backcourt's really good with Presley leading the charge back there. But they picked up Karina Clems. She moved in from California around November. And, she's starting to figure out her footing with them and, her ability to knock down shots, have some length at like 5'11", 6 feet. Then you get like Teresa Casanovas in the middle, and they're really balanced. I would say I would probably tell people that Wanakee is better than you'd think they'd be. They play really fast, and they have a kid who has, who can just fly, and Tessa Bryan at the point of attack, who just creates so many problems for teams. And they have kids like Grayson Phillips who can step back and shoot. Ellen Dotzler can step back and shoot. Audrey Might's been kind of like a half-court Swiss Army knife for them. And, they hung 51 points on Beaver Dam in the first half on Tuesday, and it was probably the best half of basketball I've seen offensively all year. So they are as dangerous as anyone. And then kind of looking further down, Oregon with Olivia Nice is just, such a unique kid as a wing who can really pass. She defends like crazy, and she's a kid who's gotten a couple triple-doubles this year in the Badger large conference, which is absurd. Like, that just doesn't happen. And then, the one other team that I would kind of earmark as one to keep an eye on is Val Phillips Memorial. They're just such a gritty team. I mean, they're going to be as physical as possible. They play so hard, and they're just going to create so many second chance opportunities that it's just going to be a really, really tough game for a team to win. Like last year, they played on the road against Oregon in a regional championship game, and they had that game won up until the very end. And all those kids are super motivated to get back there and try to make a run at this thing. And as far as kids who just are a defensive anchor, like Princess Wachukwu is probably one of the best in the sectional. And if you don't have a kid that can contend with her, she could be like a 20-20 kid on any given night. So that'd be the other team I would really earmark in this sectional to watch, because they are kind of just they're probably going to sit in at like a 5 seed if I had to guess, but that would be a very, very difficult matchup for a team like an Arrowhead in a sectional semifinal if that were to be the game.
What's your read on Verona, Brady? I mean, I know the Big 8 is not a strong conference, but what's your read on the Wildcats?
Yeah, like I said before, I mean, postseason games are won based off your backcourt, and they have a pretty good one as well in Noelle Ralwolf, who just came in this year after the senior class that they had graduated. But, Allie Juris has been a really good defensive ace for them. Then you have Emily Jensen, who's just, been probably the most consistent offensive kid this year. But I would say they probably aren't as, talented as they were last year, which I think is pretty fair to say.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and
you lost Taylor Strumlow. I mean,
and yeah, for sure. And they just don't have
Briggs too. Reagan Briggs also on that team last year.
Yep. And they just don't have kind of the offensive juice that they had last year. But they competed with Brookfield East last weekend pretty well. They're a team who just, they have enough consistency in their backcourt where they're going to give themselves a chance. It's just going to be a matter of if they can make some shots when they really need to. Like in that Brookfield East game, they just went, dark for a little bit there, and they kind of went down double digits to 15 points and can really, dig back into that. But if they get a good start and they can hang with a team like an Arrowhead or a Wanakee, like that's definitely a game that they can win for sure.
Brady, tell me if I'm wrong here. Let's go to sectional 4, and you. I'm going to make a statement. You tell me if I'm wrong. Sectional 4, it's Muskego, Oak Creek, or Westosha, and nobody else.
I would throw in Kenosha Bradford with that mix. Kenosha Bradford is they're another team. I mean, I don't think people remember this just because it was so long ago at this point. But Kenosha Bradford opened the year with a win against Muskego, so I don't think you can necessarily write them off quite yet. They've had some weird games in the Southeast Conference, I should say. But I would definitely say that Bradford is one where you probably have to just keep an eye out on them, because they are another team who they went to overtime with Franklin last year in a sectional semifinal at Westosha, funny enough, and they were a couple bounces of ball away from getting through that, and then after that, who knows? So they definitely have a lot of kids there that can help them get to a state championship. But I would say it's probably Muskego against the field, and if it were me and I were a betting man, I'd probably put that money on Muskego.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And if you could, just give me your read on Muskego. I mean, Eric Losey's has done such a great job over there and turning that that program, he really turned that thing around really, really quickly. And I would be surprised, honestly, if they're not at the Rush Center. It would surprise me if that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, they're just so deep. I mean, they play like legitimately 10 kids, and all of them are just varsity good. I mean, that just goes back to just how good their youth program's been for so long. And, having, their zone too has also been really frustrating to teams. I mean, they can just really suffocate you, and they have the perfect kid to play in the bottom of that 1-3-1 in Autumn Dib. So they just have the personnel to just do what they do perfectly. And, hey, they played Arrowhead really well the second time around, beat them the first time. So they're about, they're a sneaky candidate to really upset one of these teams at state that I don't really think people would have expected before the year. I definitely did.
I agree. I agree that
Yes.
they're one of those teams that you could wake up and find out they're in the championship game on championship Saturday, or at least certainly in the semis. So I think that they're going to be a tough out. Oak Creek is just Oak Creek's there, but it's not kind of the Oak Creek that was. But I never count out Coach Lucknick just because he's kind of been through the fire and does such creative things that help them win championships. But to me, Oak Creek is not what Oak Creek was. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you've lost like a handful of kids these last couple of years, whether it's like Lola Prendergast or Ava Hansen or Pauline Hernandez,
the Hernandez
before
kid
that.
too, yeah.
Yep. So there was just a lot of talent that's walked out the door, but I mean, they're another one who just kind of figures it out. And I know everyone in the Southeast Conference really respects what they do over there, and I do wonder what that game would look like, a potential Muskego and Oak Creek game, because they do play each other. They have played each other a bunch over the last couple of years. So
right.
I would be curious to see it would just be a who can frustrate the other team more game, which is kind of just would be an interesting thing to watch. But
let's move to Division II. We're already behind, as we always are. Craig, how are we doing on time? We okay?
You're great, man. Whatever you need to do.
Sectional 2, let's start in subsection 1. Lakeland is a little bit of a mystery to me. I mean, I saw them play against West De Pere, and they just did not play well at all. I saw them play in the Beaver Dam tournament. They played okay, but what am I missing? Of course, Christina, we met, and Sailor Timmerman, the Twin Towers, as I call them underneath, both tremendous athletes. But am I missing something on Lakeland? Because I'm not. You have them as number 1 in the sectional. I mean, is that what do you base that on?
So yeah, I mean, the raw RPI has them at 1. My guess is they probably land at 2. Rice Lake's gonna have a little bit of a better record heading into Sunday, and I mean, they have had probably a better non-conference schedule as well, I would say. But I mean, I think it'll probably be close, but I bet Rice Lake probably gets that 1. And if they don't, it's just going to be a neutral site anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But Lakeland, I mean, just having like a kid like Christina Ouimet, who's 6'1" in that, I forget, the Great Northern Conference, who can just kind of stand out and, just kind of do her thing. There's not many kids who can compete with her up there with her size.
No, I agree.
Even when she misses she makes like probably 40% of her threes. Like, let's just say half of them that she misses are just going right to Sailor Timmerman anyway. So, I mean, they just have a really good recipe that works there, and Christina's kind of gotten used to that high volume role. So they're going to dominate the Great Northern Conference, but yeah, I think they're probably one of the tougher teams to beat just because they have a recipe that has clearly worked for them over the past handful of years. And yeah, I mean, I would say that they're probably one of the 3 teams that I would probably think would get out of here. Them Rice Lake, or another team we'll get to in subsection 2.
Subsection 2, I mean, that's going to be an interesting one just because I don't think we talk enough about Marinette and really what a great team they are and what a great program they have up there. But I kind of have a feeling this might be Marinette's year.
It very well could be. Coach Barker's done a really good job up there. Obviously won the NEC last year. I think they're going to win it again this year as long as nothing crazy happens here before the year's out. But I would say that the biggest problem that they'll have in this sectional is going to be the team that I think would be the other dark horse to get through here is Shawano. So Shawano has Leah Nordine, who's Wisconsin commit. But there's just not much you can do with a kid that's 6'1", who can jump out of the gym and just kind of get to her shot wherever she wants. Yeah, and they have like a really solid supporting cast this year. So I would bet that Shawano probably finds a way through to a sectional final, and which would be a really interesting matchup considering the 3 teams that I think could get out of here, whether it's Shawano, Rice Lake, or Lakeland. They all have a 6'1" to 6'3" kid who's just a good athlete that can just do a little bit of everything. Like, it would just be watching a couple Giants kind of do their thing. So I think that'd be really fun to watch. But yeah, no, Marinette's they're just a gritty little team. I mean, Chloe Seymour, their lead guard, is just one of the better defenders in the NEC, and she is just like a ridiculously good defensive kid. Plus, you have a kid like Riley Kiefer who's taking a bunch of threes and making a bunch too. So they have a really good recipe up there that's worked for them the last couple of years. And I can't even tell you probably when the last time they won the NEC was before last year. So they've got something going pretty well up there.
Section 2, it's almost like that sectional 4 in Division 1. I mean, you got really kind of Beaver Dam and West De Pere in the top half. The bottom half, I mean, New Berlin Eisenhower number 1, Waukesha West number 2. I mean, to me, unless I'm missing something, it's Beaver Dam or West De Pere that's coming out of there.
I would probably guess so. I would say that I think that subsection 2 is probably going to have a lot of movement on Selection Sunday. Waukesha West is probably going to walk in there at like 7-13, 7 or maybe 8-12, and so I'm guessing they're probably going to drop a little bit. But there's just a lot of teams down there that can really frustrate you. Like Eisenhower is one who's just a really gritty defensive team. Grafton has a lot of kids who are just really scrappy.
Yeah, Grafton might be an interesting one too. They could make some noise if things, for them, for me, they're always this Jekyll and Hyde team. You never really know which team's going to show up on any given night. I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, and I would assume that whoever comes out of there is probably going to be they would be a pretty significant underdog against West Appear, Beaver Dam. But I would like for Grafton to get there personally, just because I've been telling Matt that they've got an outside chance at doing this for probably 3 months now. But outside of that, it's just going to be a kind of a bloodbath down there, probably more so than most other sections, because there's a lot of teams that are really even, and there's a lot of pretty balanced talent throughout that sectional. So if the real sickos will really love watching this subsection for sure.
Yeah, you got to be like a sadist to watch this subsection. Back up in subsection 1, Waupun. I mean, Waupun is not what Waupun was. I mean, of course, Kale Peterson's gone. Gracie Gopalan's gone. But you got Lydia there. You got a couple players. This is Tim Alsman's last year, so you don't necessarily want to count them out either. But they've had some losses that are pretty eye-opening, and so they're not what they were. But I mean, maybe they could do something. West Appear, I just like Faith Walder so much. She's such a good player, and Mia Racine also underneath does such a nice job. To me. Unless I'm missing something, and Beaver Dam is good. I don't know that they're going to be able to beat West Appear. To me, West Appear is kind of West Appear versus the field for me in Section 2.
Yeah, I would probably take Beaver Dam over West Appear. I just think they have a more consistent offensive kind of attack than they probably let on. Like Taya Donaldson, I think, is the best kid in the sectional. I just think that the way that she can get her offense I think she can get it against anyone. She's just so strong. She can score from all 3 levels. Then Shea Marie Ashley's really stepped up this year. She's been a lot, better with the ball in her hands, and they just have a lot of good role players that can just step out and make shots when you really don't want them to. And Emma Jolka's been a godsend to them. She's just been, doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, Emma Jolka's a nice player.
Yeah, they just have a lot of really solid kids, and with West Appear, I think the biggest thing for them is just the consistency. Faith Walder's
it absolutely really is. Yes, It absolutely is consistency for West Appear.
Yeah, they just have a lot of kids who are good players for sure. It's just a matter of them being able to put everything together. If they were to beat Beaver Dam, I wouldn't be necessarily stunned. It's just a matter of, for them, they played a lot of really good teams and they just kind of let stuff slip that they really didn't need to. But they have the backcourt talent to really make something happen here. And if it's going to be any year for them, it's probably going to be this year.
Yeah, no, I would agree 100%. I mean, it's a very veteran-heavy team for the Phantoms, so we'll see what they can put together. Moving over to Section 3, I'm going to double down on a prediction I made back in November when we did our media day, and that is I still believe, yes, of course, I love Edgewood and Coach Stav and what she's done at Edgewood. Of course, they're defending state champs. But boy, do I like Milton. I just really like Milton a lot. Julia Wolf is back on that team. It's senior night tonight for the Red Hawks. I'm just a big Milton fan. I love Stacy Skemp. I think that they're really a team to watch out for. And again, yeah, maybe they come in as a number 2 in subsection 2, but I still think they're a team flying under the radar that can really surprise some people.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to a couple of people at Milton after they played Beaver Dam a little bit ago, and they're on a hot streak right now. I mean, they beat Beaver Dam at home, went on the road and beat at Oregon. This is a team that, for the senior class, I mean, the first 2 years they won 12 games, and they're probably going to be 18-4 walking into the postseason. So they've been amazing. Kylie Butchin has been fantastic. Naomi Keeland in the back has been a really good defensive kid. The Koyo girls up front have been solid. They're just a really well-rounded bunch. And I kind of did raise the flags some of the Milton people. I'm like, hey, you guys got a shot here. It's not like it's going to be a complete walk in the park for Edgewood. And I'm really happy for them because they've all really battled through a really tough Badger schedule the last couple of years. So them getting this chance to really make some noise here is going to be really cool for them. But I mean, yeah, that Edgewood game should be a really interesting one because I don't think many people are going to give Milton much of a shot outside of maybe the Spells. and I'm sure Edgewood is going to make sure that they're prepared to go for that one too. But I think that they definitely do have a chance in that game if that were to be the case. But I will say the only other team that I will really throw a flag up on for this is Elkhorn, because they just got Kieran Lyle back the other day. So they're going to be a lower seed in here, but they're going to be a really tough out too with her back.
What about West Salem? To me, the litmus test for West Salem comes tomorrow when they host Wauwatosa East. That'll be a great game, 1 o'clock tomorrow. But I don't know enough about West Salem to speak intelligently about it. But what do you like about this team?
Well, I mean, they've been there before, for sure. So
they were there last year.
State tournament. Yeah. And the year before in D3. I mean, they've kind of been a fixture there the last couple of years. And, last year, Megan Johnson went bananas in a sectional final to end McFarland's run at another run to state with 40 points in that one and at Baraboo. But yeah, I mean, they've just been there. I mean, they have kids who know what they need to do in big games. Like, they're not going to blink in the face of pressure. And there's a lot of teams in here who I think that they should probably take care of pretty well. The one team that I think can really give them a game is La Crosse Central. Alana Simpson's incredibly talented for those who haven't seen her play before. But yeah, I mean, West Salem, I mean, for all intents and purposes, should be playing for the right to go to state again this year if all holds.
Section 4 is it's a very competitive section. You got Wisconsin Lutheran, you got Pius and Tosa East. And the top of subsection 1, you got Union Grove and Whitnall. Section 2, don't count out Whitnall. Whitnall won the Woodland East this year, and they really won it quite handily. They've had a really nice year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Riley Ward's been really good for them. And, this is a game that Whitnall Union Grove potential sectional semifinal game is one that happened last year, and it was not a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. It was really competitive. I'm sure Whitnall wants to have that taste of going to a sectional final and, playing for a chance to go to state. So, I mean, a lot of attention is going to get put on that top half of the bracket, and rightfully so. I mean, those teams are really good. But, I mean, that Whitnall Union Grove potential for a sectional semifinal, again, is going to be a blast. But, yeah, I mean, that top half, I mean, it's just it's going to be a war to get to a sectional final out of there. I mean, Tosa East, I think, is probably the favorites. I mean, they're probably going to end up with the 1 seed. My guess is it's probably Tosa East, Whitefish Bay, Pius, Wisco in that order, seeding wise. Wisconsin Lutheran's lost about 6-7 games, but it's because they're playing some of the best teams in the state pretty consistently, whether it's KML or, Pewaukee twice, Pius twice. I mean, they just kind of have to really battle through a season. But yeah, I mean, that top half is going to be, I mean, last year was really difficult to get through it for Tosa East, and it's going to be just as difficult for them this year.
And, the young guns at Wisconsin Lutheran, as I call them, Grudzelanek and Nommensen and that group. I mean, I still think in a way they're kind of cutting their teeth still, but they may do something in this postseason. And again, it wouldn't surprise me. Lang Bartles also. I mean, a very talented team.
Yeah, and I mean, all that goes, and they don't even have maybe their most talented kid in freshman London Hollins, who tore her ACL last April. So they're only going to get better as the years go on. But yeah, I mean, that Wisconsin Lutheran team, like, they can compete with anyone. I'm sure none of these coaches, if they end up playing them, whether it's in a regional title or a sectional semifinal, are going to look past them by any stretch of the imagination.
You know what's funny about that is we did the Wisconsin Lutheran Tosa East game back in November, and Tosa East handled them. It was a blowout. They won by, I want to say, 25-30 points. But you know what? At one point, Germantown beat De Pere by 40, and then in the sectional finals, De Pere got their revenge, and actually that game carried them to state. So just because something happens in November doesn't mean it's going to happen in March.
It's better it happens in November than it does March, Yeah. All
right,
Gary,
let's move on.
I got a question. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
When the committee is when they're ranking, when they're seeding, having their meeting, do they take into consideration? We talked about injury. You guys talked about injuries, loss, or players returning. Does the committee take that into consideration? Will that fluctuate a team's ranking?
I'll let Brady answer that.
Yeah, no, so it won't. It's going to be all based on their computer seeding.
Okay. Yep.
So it's going to be their adjusted RPI stuff. So, yep, it won't affect it at all.
All right.
Which, again, for a team like Hortonville, I mean, that's,
correct.
If you lose Rainey Wilson, I mean, that's the heart and soul of your team, and that's a big loss. And they won't be, what we kind of all expected them to be. Doesn't mean that they won't be good. They won't compete. They will, but you lose a player like that, and things change. All right, Brady, let's move on to Division 3. In Sectional 1, you got a lot of teams out west, and I know Baldwin Woodville is a really good team, but beyond that, there's not much I know out of that subsection. Anything jump out at you in subsection 1?
Yeah, so Baldwin Woodville is a really interesting team. I mean, they're so good defensively. I mean, if you really want to have a good laugh, you should just go see what other teams are scoring against Baldwin Woodville throughout the year, because it's not a lot. I mean, they just do a really good job of just really making teams frustrated. Maggie Jensen in the middle of at least the zone they played last year is really important. But yeah, then looking through some of them, like Prescott with Violet Otto is a kid who can just kind of go off at any point in time. I think she had a 2-game stretch there where she hit like 17 threes or something crazy like that. St. Croix Central really jumped up this year. They have Elsa Rubis in the middle for them, a 6'2" post kid. They're probably going to win the Middle Border Conference, I believe is what they're in this year. They're another really good team up there as well. And I believe they actually beat Baldwin Woodville at one point this year. But Baldwin Woodville is, again, like we talked about before, the experience is such a big thing. And, all those kids that were there, like Haley Jort, Maggie Jensen, have all been to state before. And, they had a pretty rough taste in their mouth probably when they played Edgewood last year. So I'm sure that they'd love to get back there. And just their defensive, capabilities are always going to give them a chance to do that.
I love Prescott, not just because of girls basketball, but also girls golf and also softball. Mm-hmm. I just wonder what's in the water at Prescott, because, it's a small little town. It's not like it's a private school. It's a small town, but yet they seem to consistently churn out tremendous athletes and tremendous girls sports teams. So I'm always kind of rooting for Prescott.
Yeah, just last year they got Lila Postma down to Bradley. They've always had talent up there, and Violet Otto is just the latest in that line of kids, and just her ability to shoot it is always going to give them a chance. Even over the summer she's shot her teams into games that they probably had no business being in. So she is always capable of giving her team a chance to win in any of these games.
All right, let's move on to Sectional 2. Actually, the bottom half of Sectional 1, the subsection. Again, I'd have to count on you to enlighten me on anything there. I don't see any of those teams.
Yeah, so Elk Mound is a team who's kind of been on the cusp of it for a while. They have really good wings, and Ellie Shizik, who's going to UW La Crosse, is kind of the biggest piece for them. And they've been really close for a while of really making some noise here, but they just haven't been able to do it. They even beat, I believe they beat Aquinas last year when they were up in D3, which is not an easy task whatsoever. But then Wisconsin Dells is the other team that can really give them a lot of trouble. Natalie Backus, who is a D2 commit to Augustana, is going to be a really big piece for them. She's just kind of the Wisconsin version of Jokic with the way that she can pass the ball. But yeah, they have Natalie Field, Shia Hopkins, who's also really good. Those are probably the two teams that are gonna represent this bottom half in the sectional final.
What about Coach Pep and the Rail Splitters at Altoona?
Coach Pep, she's always going to give her team a chance to win it. Losing Alyssa Worth last year and some of the talent like Tay Christopher, who's kind of come and gone from the last couple of years, has kind of dwindled the talent pool a little bit. But they're a team who should be, winning a regional championship. At least I would hope so for Coach Pep's sake, because I love Coach Pep.
Yeah, me too.
But I would say the Dells and Elk Mound are the two teams that are going to be the ones to beat down here.
Who did the Dells beat earlier this year, Brady? They knocked somebody off that nobody kind of expected them to. I can't remember who it was.
They did beat Westfield.
Westfield. That's what I'm thinking of. Westfield.
Yep. The dominant force in the South Central Conference is no more. Natalie Backus hit a game winner as time expired there, and with a little fader, and that she's always been able to hit ever since I've known her. So they're going to be a really tough one to beat.
The Dells also, we talked about the Hadley Baker story for De Pere. I think the Dells has a similar story, and there's one of their stars on that team lost her dad this year, and I think that again that could be a big rallying point. I know he was really involved in the program and in the team, and all the girls knew him, so that could be something to watch out for as well with the Dells.
Yeah, that was the Hopkins family. Mashaya
Hopkins, thank you. Yes.
Yep, and I knew him. I remember talking to him down in Louisville last year. He's an awesome dude. He loved Ash more than anything, and he was
Absolutely.
Just the nicest guy ever. So I'll have nothing but that family is like second family to me. So if there's anything I could ever, I told Ash forever ago, if there's anything I can ever do for them, I'm more than happy, because he was an awesome dude.
Yeah, he definitely was. Okay, let's move on. Section 2. What stands out for me is certainly Freedom. Freedom is perennially, in the hunt. Seymour having a nice year as well, in that top half, and then Wittenberg, Burnham Wood, kind of the leader in that group.
Yep. So Wittenberg, Burnham Wood's going to probably be undefeated going into the postseason, and if they lose, it's going to be something that probably they shouldn't do, because they are really good with Melena Granquist and Roy Salveson up there, and with Freedom, they've been a little bit streaky. They had control of the NEC for a while there this year, but they lost a couple games that they probably shouldn't have, and kind of gave up that control to Marinette. But they have a lot of really solid kids, whether it's Brianna Dickrell or Gracie Martzel, Abby Cropsey. I mean, there's just a lot of really good kids there. So I'd never count them out, especially as a team who's made runs before. But yeah, I would say that would be a really interesting one. Yeah, Seymour with Haley Oskey, coaching them, back at her alma mater. That's a super cool story up there. And the other team that I would kind of look at here is Wrightstown. Ella Verbatim in their backcourt is really, really good. And that would probably be a team that would have as a dark horse in here to make some noise if things break their way.
And here's you back to Wittenberg, Burnham Wood. You look at Rory Salverson, who's such a great player, but that's not even her number one sport. She's a softball player, and she's going to Minnesota for the University of Minnesota for softball. And boy, talk about a great kid. I got to meet Rory at the Showtime Sports Showcase last year, and just a grounded kid with a good head on her shoulders, and just a tremendous athlete. So always rooting for Rory, and I'll be interested to see what kind of run that they can put together in the postseason. All right, Craigers, your turn here. So we get to the bottom half, subsection 2. Brady, you have, and I think you're right on here, as Xavier and Winneconne as the top two, and those two teams played each other over the Christmas break, and Xavier led by double digits, maybe even close to 20 points in the first half. Winneconne made a big comeback and just fell short at the end. But when I look at that subsection, I mean, to me, it's going to come down to those two playing in the bottom half of that section.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a real stress test here for the WIAA formula, because I've always said, and noticed that teams who have really, really good records are the ones that tend to jump, and that is not Xavier. I mean, they're going to probably be 12-10 come Sunday, and Winneconne has a lot better record than that, obviously. So I'm really curious to see what they end up doing with Xavier. I mean, they've played about as tough a schedule as you could probably play. I mean, they played, Arrowhead, Edgewood, Laconia. I'm pretty sure it's just, because the Monstars weren't taken that they played all those teams instead. But yeah, so I'm curious to see where they end up, because I mean, they've done really well in the raw RPI stuff that I've done. But again, with the way that the WIA does things, with the way that a lot of teams that get bumped are ones that have really, really good records, that's just not the case with Xavier. So that's probably the one team among all the other ones that I have my eye on to kind of see where they land, because I would not be surprised if they dropped a good bit, and would be a real surprise to some people. But just with the way the records usually work, that's usually kind of the flag that I usually raise. But you never know. I mean, they could be anywhere from 1 to, I think the way I looked at it, maybe even 5. I think, but that's the one that I'm just so unsure on, and I'm so excited to see where they land, because they're going to be, obviously really good. I mean, they have a really good group there. Yeah. And they're so deep, but yeah, it's an interesting case for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So, Brady, I'm too close to it to give a objective answer, just because I love the kids so much. But does Winneconne have a chance to make it to state this year? I mean, is that reasonable?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I would say that they're necessarily the favorite here, but I don't think that they're that far off. I mean, obviously Grace Mitchell's a kid who can just kind of do a lot of stuff on the court, and there's just not a whole lot she can't do. Then you have Harper Neese there, who kind of really sets a tone physically under the basket, and they just have Jada Kaiser, who's been shooting the ball really well. I mean, they just have a lot of really solid kids, and I don't think there's anyone that really stands head and shoulders above everyone in this sectional like Xavier did last year. Yeah. So I think it's as open as it's been in a while over on the side of the bracket. Even with Freedom, when they had Sadie Jarman-Levitz and Kirsten Krewalt, it's not what it used to be. This thing is very open.
Do you think
Troy Buell has done such a great job?
Do you think it plays in Winneconne's favor to have the selection show be on Sunday? Because down the stretch they have Lourdes and then Kettle Moraine Lutheran to finish their season. Could possibly lose both those games and could have impacted their seeding. Do you think it helps them to possibly land that number one seed to have this happen on Sunday as opposed to,
next Sunday,
a week from now?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I'm not sure how much it would, because there is like a pretty big gap between them and most of the other teams, at least on my end of things. But then again, like playing a team like KML, who I think is maybe one of the 5 best teams in the state, isn't necessarily as much of a knock as it would be if it would losing to Lourdes would be a pretty big one. But obviously, like it won't matter. It won't matter to them. It's just basically going to be exhibition stuff after that. So I can't say it. Would be a bad thing.
Yeah, no, agree. And again, as I was saying, Coach Bulis does such a nice job at Winneconne this year. His first year on the girls' side after spending a decade on the boys' side. I mean, he really understands how to coach girls. And Brady, you and I both know that's not the easiest thing to do. It takes there's a different approach to it. But you know what? Those girls came to him and said, we want you to coach us just like you coach the boys. Which again, credit to the girls for saying that and believing in his ability so much that they really. They're kids that would run through a brick wall for him, and again, you can never take that lightly, especially when it comes to the postseason. Sectional 3, I mean, to me, Brady, unless I'm missing something, I mean, somebody's got to do something with Laconia, because I have them as my favorite to win their 3rd straight gold ball, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, it's going to be tough for any of these teams to beat Laconia. I mean, they're just so good. There's no other way to put it. They're just so good. And, the biggest thing that they've had in the games they've lost this year is usually their games where Aubrey Leonard hasn't played for most of it, whether she's gotten hurt or fouled out. So as long as she's on the court, I don't really see anybody really pushing them too hard in the sectional.
Could Edgerton compete with them, do you think? You and I saw Edgerton when they played Brookfield East, and I think we both came away pretty impressed with them. I mean, could they, if things break right, could they play with Laconia in the postseason, do you think?
I think they may still be a year away from something like that.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, just with the way that Laconia teams just kind of gelled over the last 4 years, I mean, it's really tough to beat a team that's been to 3 straight state championship games. And, all those kids are, I mean, knock on wood, they're all going to be healthy for a potential sectional final against Edgerton. And I mean, I think Edgerton's more than capable of getting there. And I mean, I think they've, been really, really good this year. But I mean, Laconia, I mean, they're the class of D3. I mean, if they can beat them, more power to them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I think it's Laconia's to lose. I take Laconia versus the field in Sectional 3. Sectional 4, it's almost like D1 Sectional 2. I mean, it is loaded. Kettle Moraine Lutheran, Oostburg, Academy of Science, Catholic Memorials has such a nice year this year. Bob Wellenstein's done such a nice job, and the Colts kid is having a great year. Jenna Welsh having a great year. I think you got to watch out for CMH in this postseason.
Yeah, I'm maybe a little bit biased as an alum myself of Catholic Memorial, but yeah, I mean, this is the first time, in I think over a decade that they beat Arrowhead this year, which is, I don't know how, I don't think anybody really expected that going into the year, or even like from the last couple years with the talent that Arrowhead's had coming through. And I expect them to probably be the 1 seed in that bottom half of the sectional.
I would agree.
They made it to a sectional final last year too, and they were really, really, really bad shooting day away from, maybe even going to state and beating KML last year. So I'm sure a lot of those seniors like Jenna Welsh and Holly Colts are all going to really want one more shot at this thing, and they definitely can do it. It's going to be a uphill battle for them, but definitely something in their wheelhouse.
And then, of course, the top half, we talked about them a little bit already, but Kettle Moraine Lutheran with Mackenzie Luring, with Madeline Leffel, with, just the talent on that team. And they were there last year, and I think that they feel they've got unfinished business. I think you're on a collision course for KML and Oostburg, in that subsectional final. And again, those are 2 teams I think that are very capable of representing well in the state tournament. It's sad one of them is not going to make it. But who do you like in that KML Oostburg preview in Sectional 4?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to end up doing anything talking about like the brackets when they do come out at some point. So I'll keep it really brief. But that KML team is just like, I mean, they put the pause on a lot of teams this year. I don't really see that slowing down.
They beat Winneconne by 36.
Yeah, I mean, they beat Hartford.
And it wasn't even that close, really.
Yeah, I mean, they just do nothing but beat good teams. The only game they lost against Pius was when Mackenzie Leering went down with an injury in the first half, and
Right.
they lost by like 9 points, something like that.
Yeah.
And that Oostburg team hasn't lost since that Laconia game. So, I mean, and obviously with the Ketterhagen kids, like, they're really, really tough to handle. But that KML team, they've just, I mean, I before the year started, my prediction was KML, Laconia in a state championship game, and I'm going to hold myself to that, and I hope that the Ketterhagen kids prove me wrong.
Yeah, well, and Oostburg, they may be a year away still. I mean, Kins is just a freshman, and she's had an injury, since the first of the year. So, I mean, they may still be a year out. But if things break right, you never know. I mean, they could definitely make a run.
I will say, as good as KML is defensively, I mean, we saw what that Laconia team did defensively with Kinsley Ketterhagen, and there was nothing. There was nothing they could do with that kid.
Right.
So she's playing her best. I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know if Kinsley's at her best.
She looked like Jordan on that fadeaway. That fadeaway was like Michael Jordan. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, she doesn't play like a freshman, that's for sure.
No, she does not. Well, she's already got offers at Wisconsin, at Green Bay, and a host of others. So, and many, many more to come. She's just a freshman. She got those offers in 8th grade. So, I mean, she's going to be phenomenal the next 3. She'll be fun to watch the next 3 years. Of course, Addie and Riley both will be fun to watch the rest of this year and next year as well. So, and they're both going to Green Bay as well. So, that'll be or Division 3 is pretty loaded. That's going to be a fun one. Let's go to Division 4. Looking at Sectional 1, what stands out at you in Sectional 1 and D4, Brady?
So Sectional 1 and D4, I mean, a lot of these teams are kind of out of sight, out of mind, but I think it's really, really good. I mean, it's as deep as it was last year when McDonell and Fall Creek played it for a sectional final. I mean, Durant Arkansas has beaten a lot of these teams like Fall Creek and Regis just played really well with Sebastian. LMA Cooper just put up like 44 in that game or something crazy. And then, you have teams like Colfax, who's had a really good year. Shell Lake's had a really good year. Then you look down at the bottom half with Phillips. They've been another team that's on the cusp of something really, really good. With the younger Eggerbrecht sister, who I think it's Casey. Is that
Jaden's sister?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, one more coming through with Casey.
Wow.
But then you got Cameron, who, I mean, that's another one who's way up north toward Rice Lake, and a kid like Lexi Kufel is such a good athlete. She's going to run track somewhere, but just her ability to set the tone defensively at the point of attack. Bailey Olson as a sophomore has been really good for them. I mean, that Cameron team's really sneaky good. But then again, there's probably like 6-7 teams that if they win the sectional, I wouldn't be. And Clear Lake, who was in the D5 state tournament last year. So there's just so many teams here who can win it and really make a show of it. And if people are up there watching those games, they're going to have a blast, that's for sure.
Well, and I'm just going to put this out there now because I had to do a big mea culpa last year, but I like Fall Creek for a couple reasons. I mean, the number one reason is I just love Addie Haynes, and how the way she plays, the way she competes. I mean, she's such a fierce competitor, and I really discounted them last year in the state softball tournament, and believe me, they let me hear about it. But I like Fall Creek just because of their state experience, first of all in softball, but also the Crickets are just a perennially good team, and I think they're one to watch out for in Sectional 1. So keep an eye on the Crickets. Section 2. St. Mary Catholic, you got them kind of as your number one. They lost to Winneconne a couple weeks ago, I think at home, which I think surprised some people. Bonduelle, this is Lupke's team. So give me your read on St. Mary Catholic and Bonduelle coming out of that top half of Section 2.
So just a quick touch on Bonduelle. Losing Ella Hitchke last year really stinks for them because that kid was really good. But they've been about as good as you can expect after losing like an all-time kid like that in your program. So them having like a 17-4 record going into this is going to really help them. They're probably going to be the number 2 seed if I had to guess in this sectional. Then St. Mary Catholic I actually just saw yesterday, and they do they have a lot of good wings that are like 5'10", and a lot of kids who can just handle the ball pretty well. I mean, they played Oostburg pretty tough for a while. I mean the Ketterhagens kind of came out of the gates and punched them in the mouth a bit, but they battled. I mean, they got kids like Emily Vogel, who's going to Eau Claire, and Autumn Crow played pretty well last night. Lucy Norval, I thought, was a really, really, really good piece for them yesterday. They just have a lot of really solid kids, and I think they're going to walk in with 3 losses. I think 2 or 3 losses on the season, they should be the number 1 seed, and I wouldn't be surprised if they play their conference rival Manitowoc Lutheran in a sectional final either.
The bottom half of that sectional's got some pretty good teams in it. Kewanee, Manitowoc Lutheran, and Valders. I really love Coach Otto and Valders. Manitowoc Lutherans just have kind of a magical year.
Yeah, I think part of it, with the Big East North, I think that St. Mary Catholic and Manitowoc Lutheran have kind of been the runaway teams in that conference. They've kind of beat up on some teams, but, regardless, you got to play who's in front of you, and, I mean, they've won those games. Kewanee's a team who I think is a little bit underrated, just with, the way that Jalen Kroll plays. I mean, that kid's just so athletic. I mean, she just does a lot of really good stuff for them. And obviously, Valders has been, 20-win team last year, could easily be a 20-win team again this year, depending on how they play in the postseason, which, hopefully they play pretty well. So, I mean, it's not going to be a cakewalk for anybody over here. And, there's probably like 5 teams here who, if they were to end up at state, I'd be like, yeah, that probably makes sense.
St. Mary Springs could surprise some people, too, in the bottom half of that section with Gracie Conkle. I mean, they could make some noise as well. I love Coach Reddick. I love what he does at Springs. So I may want to keep an eye on those guys as well.
Yeah, for sure. Brilliant, too. I mean, Brilliant's always been a really solid program. Last year was a little bit of a dip, but they've kind of jumped back into it this year, and they're going to have a pretty good record by the time this year's done and dusted. I think they're probably going to be I think they're 14-7 right now, so could end up finding their way into a nice little postseason run, too.
All right, let's move sectional 3. You got some blue bloods at the top here. I mean, Neilsville, Aquinas, and Bangor. I mean, those, and Stratford too. I mean, you hear those names over and over again when it relates to the state tournament, and I'm sure it'll be a slugfest like it always is between that 4.
Yeah, I mean, Neilsville's been really good. I mean, they lost, a kid like Paris Opelt, and she's playing D2, I believe, at Concordia St. Paul now. Or no, William Jewell, apologies. But then, Aquinas with Sammy Davis. I mean, they started the year off a little shaky, playing some pretty good teams, and they just dropped those games, and they just haven't lost since. And I mean, just with, Donarski, the way that, he coaches, and, just the, success that they've had over the last handful of years, are going to be a tough team to beat. But, yeah, I would say personally it's probably Aquinas is to lose in the top half of the sectional at least.
You think so? You think it's Aquinas is to lose?
I do. I think they're playing their best basketball right now. I mean, La Crosse Central gave a bit of a scare recently, but they ran through the Mississippi Valley like they normally do. Beat a couple teams from Minnesota this year, and a couple pretty decent ones over there as well. So I don't know. I think Aquinas, just with the way that Sammy Davis is, like, she just creates so many extra possessions. Their guards are just a year older now with Ava Fernholz and, those kids in the backcourt. So I think they're going to give themselves as much of a chance as they can. And then with Sammy Davis, that kid just competes so well. Like, there's no one that's going to be as athletic as her in the sectional.
Well, for Badger fans out there, Sammy Davis is, of course, Johnny Davis' little sister. So if you remember that name from Badger men's basketball. So, I mean, and she is ultra talented. I mean, really, really talented. They have a nice team. And, of course, I never count out Coach Donarski and what he can do with the group over there. So, they'll be one to keep an eye on. The bottom half, Argyle, Pecatonica, they handed Albany Monticello their first loss of the year this past week, 49-47 at Monticello. Does Jen have what it takes to get these kids back to state, do you think?
Yeah, I think they definitely can. They've had a little bit of a weird year with they lost both games to Barneveld, split with Albany Monticello, but they're a really good team. Kylie Butler is a really solid guard, and Brooke Wellnitz has been really, really good for them as well. She's been a much better offensive piece for them than they were last year. Funniest stat line for her last year was at that state semifinal when she had like 2 points, but she had like 18 rebounds or something crazy like that. Yeah. So I mean, they're really good. I would say the team that I think is probably the one I did pick this team to win state this year.
I know who you're going to say. Yep, I knew you were going to say them.
Yep. I picked them to win earlier in the year, and I did have the caveat because I did believe that Olivia Olson was going to be coming back this year, which, good news. She was first game back was last night. So, happy for Olivia as my dog makes a little bit of an appearance over here.
That's right. Hey, puppy.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, Olivia Olson being back is a big time game changer for them. Like, she's such a good guard, and she's just such a competitor, and I would never bet against that kid in any situation. I was talking to her, Kyle Recklitz, her future college coach, the other day, and she was telling me that she was coming back, and I'm like, yeah, honestly at this point, like, she can go back in time, get punched in the face by Mike Tyson, and still find a way to play the rest of the season to the best of her abilities. So just with how close they've been to a state championship before even last year. And, her having that step back three where, from my vantage point, looked like it was down against Laconia. Like, I just think that they're going to be a really, really tough out. And I don't think Olivia Olson's going to, I don't think she's going to allow them to come up short.
You know, you got to give a lot of credit to the Rowe kid over there, too, at Cuba City. She's had a really nice year, and she's done a nice job of kind of carrying the weight with Olsen being out. And, of course, you know, Coach Derby's done a fantastic job at Cuba City and looking to take them back to state after a trip to the finals last year against Laconia.
Yeah, I mean, they just figure it out down there at Cuba City, don't they? Ashley
they do.
Been
they do.
really good for them. And she's probably going to end up getting, you know, Conference Player of the Year this year, which is
As she should.
And, you know, having a kid like Ashley Rowe to be a lead guard after Olivia Olsen goes down is just an embarrassment of riches at a school like Cuba City.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Sectional 4, we're running up against time here. Craig, are we okay on time?
You are perfect, Gary.
Okay. Sectional 4, you know, what stands out to me is, of course, J.J. Barnes of the Prairie School, unless I'm missing something. But, you know, Poynette is also a really good team. Evelyn, oh, my gosh, I can't remember her last name. Albrecht, just a great talent on that Poynette team. They'll be one to watch as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the Prairie Schools to lose. I mean, as far as like gaps between, you know, the top team and the rest of the sectional it doesn't get, you know, bigger than this one. And again, the Prairie School's been on the cusp of it, you know, the last couple years. Last 2 years they lost to Laconia in D4, and you know they're not there to stop them now. So
I will say, watch out for Deerfield, though. I got to see them play. They played Marshall, and Marshall's not very good, but you know, Coach Pickens has done a pretty darn good job at Deer. Not Coach Pickens. Coach Pickens is at Cambridge. Anyway, Deerfield's done a really nice job. They put together a really nice season.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, they're definitely capable of giving anybody some problems, especially with Sydney Lurkey hanging around in the middle there. But, yeah, it's going to be the Prairie School probably that comes out of here. I mean, especially with that senior class with JJ, Meg Decker. Like, I mean, they've been so close for so long. I mean, they're going to take it to the fullest this year because, I mean, they're really good. But yeah, if that were, you know, whatever my prediction at the start of the year was Cuba City and the Prairie School, and I'm still feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, no, I think you're on good ground there. Okay, let's move to D5 and close this thing out, starting in Section 1. What stands out at you there? Again, I don't know. These are mostly on the western side of the state. Most of these kids I do not know.
Yeah, so I mean, in Sectional 1, it's going to be whoever goes to state's going to come out of the top half. Clear Lake did last year. They got bumped up to D4 with enrollment. Webster has been really, really good. They actually beat Clear Lake this year a couple times. And, you know, they're going to win one of the Lakeland Conference. I forget which one they're in, but that would be my personal pick. New Auburn was undefeated for a good chunk of the year this year. I think they're a little bit underrated from like where they've been and not been in the coaches poll. But I mean, I would say it's probably Webster that probably comes out of that one.
In Sectional 2, I got to ask the question: can Pacelli knock off Assumption? Do you think is it possible?
Absolutely.
I like Jaden Droik at Pacelli. I think they might be again a team under the radar, but boy, Assumption's just there year after year after year after year.
Yep. Yeah, last year I remember, I know Assumption had some injuries toward the end of the year, but I believe Pacelli ended up beating them pretty handily. And that's when all those Pacelli kids were basically freshmen. I mean, they were basically playing nothing but freshmen and sophomores last year, and they were still really good. So, yeah, I think they definitely can. I'm not sure where they'll end up yet, because this is the only division I haven't actually gone through yet. That's going to be for me tomorrow, so it's going to be blast going through like 100 and some teams. But yeah, so I think it's probably Assumption. Yeah, exactly. I think Assumption or Pacelli are probably going to be the ones that come out of that top half. I mean, Almond Bancroft's had a really good year too. They're probably going to come in with like 4 losses ish. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to kind of see what that looks like. But just to throw it out there, I get to go up to Lena next week to go watch a Lena Coleman game.
I was going to ask about Lena. Yeah.
Yep. So I'll talk on them really quick. I mean, they had a couple weird losses. They lost to I believe it was Oneida Nation, or maybe it was Menominee Nation at some point this year, which doesn't really fit kind of how good that team is. They lost to Crandon once as well. It was a solid D4 team, but I mean, with Eva Brooks in the middle, I mean, there's just no one else in D5 that can really compete with that. Going to Winona State, but you know, I'm very optimistic that they'll probably be playing in another sectional final to go to state. Now, whether they beat whoever comes out of that top half is a different story. But that Lena team is still just as good as they were last year. I mean, they lost a couple role players, but the Thompson kids are there, and Eva Brooks is there as well, so they'll have a shot.
Now, they were a whisper away from a gold ball last year, and Abby Hollis took it away.
Don't worry. Abby had that name. Abby Hollis is still in all those Lena family's name in their heads still, I should say. So
right. Sectional 3. This is John Satterley's favorite team, Barneveld. Can Barneveld come out of Sectional 3, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they obviously got Argyle Pecatonica twice this year. They played well with Albany Monticello as well. I mean, they've kind of been just kind of the forgotten child of the Six Rivers the last couple of years because of how good Argyle, Peck, and Albany Monticello have been.
Which is funny, so if you look at the pedigree of Barneveld, I mean, they've got a strong history, especially at state. Sure. I mean, Hannah Whitish was pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously Izzy Durst there now is probably the best kid in that conference, if you ask me. But yeah, I mean they're more than capable of getting there this year now that especially Argyle Pecatonica is not in their way anymore. The only other thing I will say just on this sectional is because I've been really impressed by them is I believe it's Eleva Strum. I'm not exactly sure if I pronounced that right, but I mean they won 5 games last year and they have a kid named Avery Glens there who's just been phenomenal for them this year. But I mean I think outside maybe outside of just like a couple coaching jobs like with Nina with Andy Burdell, like what they've been able to do up there has been really really impressive. I mean they were a bottom feeder in their conference for a while, and now they're fighting for a conference championship this year, and when not really a ton has changed.
And then Sectional 4, I mean, to me, the teams that I like come out of there is Sheboygan Lutheran and Albany Monticello. I love Addie Verhagen at Sheboygan Lutheran. She just became the all-time leading scorer at Sheboygan Lutheran. Just a tough, hard-nosed, gritty kid. She fought through some injuries and is back. I would love to see her kind of crown her senior year with a trip to state. I'm totally rooting for her. But, of course, I love Albany Monticello as well. Abby Hollis, the Olson kid, Heidi Olson's had a really nice year at Albany Monticello as well. I mean, to me, those are the two teams that come out of Sectional 4, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I would say so too. Funny enough, the prediction that I had at the start of the year was it was going to be Alena and Sheboygan Lutheran state championship game, and with the injury to Taylor Brigham, it kind of made me a little worried. But they've been playing really, really good basketball here.
She's recently. Back now, though. But yeah.
Yep. They played really well against Duisburg, maybe like a week and a half ago, and they beat Manitowoc Lutheran pretty handily last night too. Guards win you titles, and Addie Verhagen is one of the best ones in D5, if not the best one. And funny thing about them, and Addie's freshman year, they're in D5, and they have Randolph in their sectional, get beat by Randolph, then go up to D4 for the next 2 years and hang around in a sectional with Laconia for the next 2 years and lose to them. So it's like, well, like, what are you like? You're playing against state champions every year in your sectional, and they very well could this year with Albany Monticello too, because I don't really see a team in that bottom half beating them. But I do think Sheboygan Lutheran definitely does have a chance at getting them. But yeah, I think that's kind of the collision course that we're heading to in sectional 4.
And lastly, what's your read on this? Is more selfish for me because I'm going to see them on Tuesday. Lourdes Academy. What's your read on those guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's been the Haley Bauer show there for, this is 4th year now for her, which is crazy. But Haley Bauer is really good. If she wanted to play at the next level, she definitely could. But yeah, I mean, a lot of kids have kind of come and gone there throughout the years, but Haley Bauer has been a pretty big constant there. And, obviously they, got Oakfield in their conference too. So they played some pretty tough games throughout the years, but, it's you'll enjoy Haley Bauer. She's a breath of fresh air, that's for sure.
I think I saw her as a freshman. It's been a while since I've been over there, so I'm looking forward to getting back on Tuesday when they take on Winneconne, kind of as we head to the final stretch of the season. Also, just put it out there, don't count out Maddie Funky Cold Miedema at Randolph. I mean, I like her play a lot, and I like Chad Kaufman a lot, the head coach over there. So never know.
Well, you're basically a celebrity over there in Randolph, right?
Oh, I love Randolph. It's a great place.
Not just in Randolph, everywhere. Everywhere.
Especially there.
Yes.
They got him a card signed by everybody the only time I went to Randolph with Gary. So he's big time over there, that's for sure. I can say that for certain.
Well, I love going over there. They're great people, and they've always treated us super. Rob Nill, the athletic director, has always been so great to us. And again, Chad Kaufman is a friend of mine, and I'm really a big Randolph fan. Craig, do you ever feel like you're talking to the Rain Man with Brady here? I mean, he's not, by the way, you guys, he's not looking at notes. I mean, this is just all off top of his head. I mean, I can ask him any question about any team, and he'll have an answer.
Yeah. Oh, to be fair, I had my RPI stuff up as well.
Well,
so I will say that it was just teams and numbers is all I had was teams and numbers.
But he doesn't have like player names. I mean, he just spouts them off like just boom, like nothing. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I could listen to him.
I try to stump him. It's impossible. It's impossible to stump him. And believe me, I've tried. I could never stump him on anything. He always has an answer. He's like the John Clayton of the NFL. I mean, the dude knows everybody.
You're fantastic. Yes.
Appreciate it, Gary.
Well, hey, don't forget Sunday at 11 o'clock. If it's not on TV, I don't think it is in the Milwaukee area. You can watch it on WIAA.wi.org. I know I'll be watching and be curious to see how the rankings come out. Carly Murata and Norbert Durst will be hosting that show, and a lot of knowledge. Of course, Norbert, a ton of knowledge as well on girls basketball and the state senior writer at with Sportsnet. So be sure to check that out 11 o'clock on Sunday. For the postseason for us, we are for sure doing Notre Dame games, Notre Dame's regional games, which will be February 28th and March 1st. We still have one other package available. Dom D'Angelo is going to do the Notre Dame games. I'll do whichever the second one is. So if you're interested, make sure you send me an email right away, info@productionsw7.com. I'll get you the details, but it's a chance to promote and live stream your team on W7 for the regionals, February 28th and March 1st, and that's open to anybody in the state. So any team that's interested, let us know, and we'll get together and talk and see if we can put something together.
Gary, do you have any other games to promote? Do you have games tonight?
Yeah. So tonight we'll be at Kaukauna. We'll be at Kaukauna tonight for Oshkosh West at Kaukauna. Not doing any games tomorrow. Monday, we're off Monday, and then Tuesday we'll be back with Oshkosh Lourdes hosting Winneconne. Wednesday we'll be at Pius. It's the Woodland crossover game. Pius against somebody from the Woodland East. My guess would be like a Whitnall or maybe Greendale, somebody like that. Thursday is Thursday's Kaukauna regular season finale. They play Kimberly, and then Friday we're planning Hortonville and Providence Academy at Hortonville, and then I think we're open for Saturday. I think Friday is our finale. So for the season, so be a busy week next week as we get back into the full swing of things, get ready for the postseason. Of course, I'll be at the regional and sectional games. I'm still 50-50 on going to state this year. We'll see how the recovery keeps going, but hoping to make it up there. Connor told me I could stay at his place for the weekend if I come up. So he's going to be in, where did he say he's going? He's going to Nepal. So he told me, so it could be a big party at Connor's house, when
that's what it sounds like to me.
We're up there. So, yeah, a lot going on. Of course, softball's coming up sooner rather than later. We'll have our media day March 25th. And our selection show is actually Sunday, March 24th for our schedule reveal show. So a lot of stuff going on as I kind of get back and get my sea legs back and get ready to crank it up for this spring. But excited to be back for girls basketball this winter. I would have been just heartbroken if I couldn't be involved in the next few weeks, because that's always the pinnacle of the year. And I love going to state just because we see so many friends up there, and it's kind of like a big family reunion on state weekend. So hopefully if things break right, I'll be able to be up there for that, but we'll see how things go.
Can I make a pitch for next Saturday for you to just stay in Hortonville?
Sure. Yeah.
Because I tell you what, as the Wisconsin expert of Providence Academy, you will love that entire team. Like, they are just awesome people.
Isn't Hortonville? Did they move that game to the Al McGuire Center? So
Hortonville and Arrowhead are going down there, but Providence Academy is still sticking up there to play Notre Dame.
On Saturday?
Yep. So they got two games up there in Hortonville. Yep.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I would plan on definitely being there Saturday as well.
I'll tell you what, they got a bunch of characters over there. Like, you will, all you got to do is put a camera up; they'll figure the rest out. Don't you worry about that.
Well, that's great. I'm excited then. I think Craig, you joining me Friday night?
I think so. Madden Greenway.
Craig's going to join me Friday night for Hortonville Providence Academy. Brady, if you're up there Saturday, I got a headset for you.
Oh, listen, I'm already there. Listen, I can't skip out on Connor Getz. I went to one of their practices over when I was in Minnesota. They're awesome people over there. You'll love them.
So I just got signed up for another game next weekend. But again, it'll be regular season finale for Peyton Musial, or career regular season finale for Peyton Musial. So I wouldn't want to miss that. We'd planned on doing Notre Dame and Arrowhead on Thursday, but Dominic has a conflict with his with band, so he's going to have to go to that. So we won't be able to do that game Thursday, but definitely Notre Dame, and that's kind of weird because Hortonville's going to play at the Al, but yet they're still going to play a game at Hortonville. That's kind of weird. But hey, as long as they'll have us, we'll be there. We'll just crash for the weekend in Hortonville.
I already got a hotel up there, Gary, don't you worry.
what's the town next to it everybody goes to, Brady? Greenville? Yeah, Greenville.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll stay at Greenville. But we'll be up in the neighborhood, so definitely looking forward to it.
Good hoops, gentlemen. Gary, a lot of fun. Brady, a lot of fun.
As
guys,
always.
You're so entertaining, so full of knowledge. Appreciate you both, and I hope Valentine's Day treats you both exceptionally well.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it, Brady. Pleasure as always.
Pleasure's always mine.
Have a good one, gentlemen.
Thanks, Craig.
Well, that's a wrap on W7, the Full Court Press. So much fun, so much knowledge. Brady is, that man knows his women's basketball. I hope everyone has a fantastic Valentine's Day. Let's put a wrap on the Sports Coach today and enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week. Till then, be great.